Okay, so part 2, now we have the form done, we need to start adding the code to it. So the only thing we're going to add code to is the submit button, because once we click that, I want it to execute a load of code, and that's really where it's all coming from. So you're going to double click on the button, and that'll take you into the code view, where you can see here we've got private sub, submit btn, submit button underscore click. So basically, when the button is clicked, it's going to do this code, and obviously we're going to start to enter all this code in. So I'm just going to tab it along once, just so it's kind of a bit more easier to see and manage, and that's just sort of general coding practice that I picked up from a few other languages. Few things we're going to do is start setting up some objects, variables, and other instances. So the first thing we want to do is dim and then ws as worksheet. Now I'll explain this in a second. So where's worksheet? As worksheet. So it's another variable or worksheet variable called ws. So now we need to set ws to be a worksheet that we have. So we're going to set ws equal to worksheets, and then if you open a bracket, it's going to ask you what worksheet do we want. Now this is where you need to remember what you called your sheet. I left mine as sheet 1, so sheet 1 in quotes in brackets. Okay. Next we're going to set up a well, I'm only going to set up an integer here just because we need to use it later on. It enables our radio button to be selected, and then depending on which one we choose, that obviously depicts which column we're going to put the amount in. So bear with me for now. I'm going to set up dim choice as an integer. Okay, so it's just going to be a number, and then I want to set up a long. So I'm going to set dim newRow as and then long. Okay, it's going to be a long number. What we need to do is set our newRow to equal the amount of cells that have been filled in, and then add to it. So basically, let's switch to our Excel spreadsheet so I can show you here. So it's going to loop down column B, and it's going to go right empty cell. Okay. Oh, we've got one cell filled in, so we count 1. We've got a second cell filled in, so we count 2. A third cell filled in, so we count 3. So we're up to 3, and then it'll come across an empty cell, and it'll stop there, and it'll say, right, this column has 3 cells in it, 3 cells that have text in. So we want to add text to the 4th cell. Now, if my cells started at 1, then the 4th cell would be here, and it will be blank. But because I've started from 2, my next blank cell is going to be 5, so I just need to add 2 to the number. So back to the coding. Okay, we can see here that I'm going to set up newRow to equal. So now we need to put a number into it. You just need to follow this code along. So application, so it's in the window. Worksheet function. Now when you type in, a box should pop up with some suggestions, and if you scroll down to it and then just press dot, it will automatically fill it in and take you to the next part of the code. So I want to find, it's called CountA. Now there's 2 different types of count. There's a count with nothing after it, and that will count how many blank cells there are. CountA will count how many not blank cells there are. So we want CountA. And then we're going to give it, well, we need it, you can take up to 30 arguments, but we're only going to put 1 argument in, and that is the argument of worksheet. So sheet 1, look in sheet 1, and I want you to find the a range, and then we're going to put in the column. So just bear with me, ws.Range. Okay, it automatically comes up. You're going to open a bracket, and then it's going to say cell 1, cell 2. Now it's not going to be cell 1, cell 2, it's going to be the entire column. So we can just put in quotes B, colon B, close quotes, close bracket, and then close the bracket again. And like I said before, if we go back to our code, we can see it's in column B. Now, if yours was in column A, you would do A colon A, and if it was in C, well, you do C colon C. So you've got to make sure you type in what column it is that's going to count. So if you had say you had user ID in this column, and every single user ID was filled in, it would get to 29, and it would count all those user IDs and say, right, okay, the next blank one is going to be A30. Obviously, I like to set my cells up so that I've got this blank row at the top and a blank column. A blank column to the side. It just lays it out a bit neater for me. So in the code, mine's going to be column B. Now, as I said before, it's going to run this, and it's going to say, right, okay, 1, 2, 3. We've counted 3. It's got the number 3, and now we need to start the new row as being 4. So to do that, we add 1 to it. Okay. Now, because I've got this extra row in, 4 would be this one, and that means it would just overwrite the very last one. So I need to add 2. So add 2. So now when it runs, it should go through. It'll go not blank, so we count to 0. First one with text in or information in, that's cell B2. We're going to count 1. B3 has text in, so 2. B4 has text in, so that's 3. Cell B5 doesn't, so that means that's an empty cell. We need to add 2 to it, so that makes our count 5, and we can see that we got B5, and that would be the new row starting there. So that's our new row set up. Now, that's where the main bit of code comes in for determining where we should put this new row, so where we should append the newest row onto a blank row. And I need to stop saying row because it's losing all meaning. Anyway, so now what we want to do is start to use our so if I just give this a save, so just Control S, or you can go File, a Save. If I just exit out of this and go back to the view, we can see we've got text box, 2 text boxes, and 2 radio buttons. So we need to use the value that's inside of these. So back to submit in the code here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up an if statement. Now, an if statement just says, if this is true, then do this. So the first thing I want to do is I want to check which radio box has been selected, because if none of them have been selected, then I'm not going to run the program, or I'm not going to run the rest of the code. So as I said before, if statements, they start with if, and I want to say if our deposit radio, okay, if that equals false, so it's not ticked, and, okay, you should be able to guess this bit now, and our withdraw radio, let me just check, we didn't call it radio, did we? We call it OPT for option. My bad. So OPT, deposit OPT, and withdraw OPT. If that one equals false, so if they're both false, then, crucial part, you need to add then at the end. You press enter, you should see certain bits of code turn blue and the rest stay black. So if they're both false, what I like to do is make a message box pop up and tell the person you've been an idiot. So message box, MsgBox, okay, capital M, capital B. I'm going to set that equal to basically just some text. Sorry, you don't need the equal sign, just use a quote. So I'm just going to say select an option, deposit or withdraw. So I'm telling the user you've not chosen an option, you need to choose it. And then I'm going to exit the sub, okay, because we've got a private sub here, so I want to exit the sub if the person hasn't clicked false and they haven't clicked, if they haven't clicked deposit and they haven't clicked withdraw, so if none of them are checked. So we can exit the sub, and then as always with our if statements we have to end the if. Okay, so that was our check to see if the deposit and the withdraw radio button haven't been selected. So what happens if they are selected? So if our deposit box, deposit OPT, if that is true, so if that has been selected, then we need to in this instance, add our bookies, the company we're using, we need to add that to the column B, and then we need to add the deposit, or the value, sorry, the amount, into column C. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to use this dim choice as integer, and you'll see why later on. I will revisit it. So I'm going to say choice equals 3. So I'm setting choice to equal the value 3. Now what I want to do is I want to insert these values that the person's typed into bookie and amount, so those two text boxes. I want to get the value that they've typed in there and place them into the cell. So what I'm going to say is worksheet. So remember, we set our worksheet 1, our sheet 1 to be ws object. So we can just say ws dot, and then you'll get a bunch pop up. We want to choose cells. So ws.Cells, and then we're going to set. It wants to know what row are we using. Well, we could type in 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to however long our spreadsheet is. But we want this number to change each time depending on how many we've got, how many rows we've got, and we don't know that number. So there's something here keeping track, and if we remember before, new row equals the next row. So if it's 10 long, it'll add 2 to it, and it'll be the 12th cell. Obviously, I've got that buffer at the top. If it was plus 1, it would be 10, plus 1, so it would be 11, and that would be the 11th cell free. So I'm just going to type new row. Simple enough. Put a comma, and then it wants the column indexed. Now we can't use letters, we have to use the numbers. So if we go back to our spreadsheet, we can see that this is column 1, this is column 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I want column 2 here. So column 2, and close the bracket. Then we're going to set the value, so dot value. Okay, it might not pop up for you. If it does, choose value, capital V, and we're going to set the value to be me dot, and me just says anything inside this this current project. So me dot, and then you can see here I've got amount.txt and bookie.txt. So it's picked up those text boxes that we made earlier. So I can just choose bookie.txt. Hit the full stop, and then I want the value from that box. So if I just break this down here, we can see I'm selecting where I want the sheet, and then I want to choose a cell, and it's going to ask me, okay, what cell do you want, what row is it, and what column? Well, it's going to be a new row, and that new row is defined by this code here. And then I want it to be in column 2, because I want it to be my second column. I want it to be the bookie column. And then I want that to be equal. I want the value of this cell to be equal to the value of the text box that we have in our user form. So you know, as soon as we get this kind of bit of programming line down, as soon as we understand what's going on here, we can simply copy this, paste it underneath, and we only have to change 2 values. And the next thing I want to enter is the amount. So the amount has to go into the third column, because this is our deposit. So what I can do here is I can, instead of typing 3, I can just put choice. Okay, because that's equal to 3 if deposit, and it doesn't need to be like this. You could just say if deposit is true, then you can just say place it into column 3. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and leave it as this, but this is just so we can sort of visualize variables a bit easier inside of VBA. So now, instead of it being in column 2, it's going to be column 3, because that's what we've set choice to be. So new row, same row as the one before, but this is a different column, and then the value is going to be equal to, and obviously this time it's not going to be the bookie text box, it's going to be the amount text box, and again dot value. So now what I'm going to do, end the if, I'm going to put another if statement in. Okay, this one going to be exactly the same as what we did before. Withdraw option equals true, then, and it's basically going to do the exact same code. So all I want to do is copy this. Okay, now bear with me with the formatting here. Oh, it's copied it in perfectly fine. So if the withdraw is true, okay, I want this choice to be in column 4, because if we look back at our withdraw column, this is the 4th column. So all we're doing here is really just moving one value along. So it's exactly the same code. The only difference here is instead of the amount going into the third column, it's going into the fourth column. And I can simply end the if there. And let's just give this a run. Now, I'm confident it'll work first time. However, there's always the chance with programming we've missed something. So I'm just going to come out of that. So back into the code, sorry. The play button up here to run it, or you can just press F5. I just like to hit the play button, and it's going to switch you to your Excel spreadsheet. So at the moment, I can't click anything. I can't click the cells because this pop-up box is open. That's fine. Let's just run a test. So bookie name test, amount 100, and let's say I've won 100 quid. So I'm going to hit submit, and it's put it in there. It's put test in the bookie, and it's put withdraw it's put 100 into the withdraw. Now let's say I also deposited £10 later on. Let's choose the deposit, submit, and you can see it's added it under the next one. And if we look here in our spreadsheet, it's automatically updated deposit, so 2 10s, withdraw 30 and 100, and then it's worked out the overall. So that's it done. That's it on its own, basically done. But there's some things I like to do. As we can see here, I've just got the number 10 and the number 100. What I can do is just select the whole column, and I can set it to be currency. Okay, so then if I just save that and I switch back to the VBA where we were coding it and hit run again, and let's test to see. So SkyBet's type in something different. £30. I deposited 30. And if it adds it in, you can see it automatically adds the pound sign, it automatically adds the pence at the end, and it's automatically updated. So what I want to do here now is I want to add a button in. And you need to have developer mode set. So what I want to do now, once we've got that code done, it's not going to run automatically, or there's no button to tell it run just as yet. And every time we want to go into it, we'd have to press Alt F11 and run it, and that's just a pain in the arse. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert a button here that when we click the button, it'll just pop that little window up that we made, and we can edit it in and then just close it off. So what we need to do is make sure developer mode is enabled. So go to File, go to Options, and then in the Customize ribbon section, you need to have developer mode ticked. Then click OK. You should see the developer mode tab up in the ribbon here. And then if we go to sort of the middle, you'll see Insert, and I want to insert an ActiveX control. I want a command button. So it's the first one here, and then I'm going to draw it in like so, and then it says command button. Now I want to edit the text of that, so I'll come out of that. Let's go to right click on it, let's go to properties. So we get this properties box popped up. There's the name of it. I'm going to hit add. I'm going to type in add new record btn, and then obviously the caption for it is going to be add new record. So you can see it's updated there. Close that down, and now what we want to do is right click again and click view code. So it's already added some code in there for command button click. I didn't mean to do that. You should just have this private sub, the name of the button that we just gave it, and underscore click. So again, when it's clicked, it's going to run this code, and all we've got to do here is look for what we called our form, and you can see here it's your form should be there. I've called it add record, so ADD record with a capital R, and then as soon as you type that in, hit the dot, and then you'll get a bunch of things we can do. All we want to do is tell it to show, and that is all you have to do. Control S or file save. Let's close this down. Now again, I'm clicking it, but it's not running. Right click, you get the right click, and it's not running. Make sure up here you can see design mode is still highlighted. If you click that to unhighlight it, it's now not in design mode, and this button will run the script we told it to do. So click it, it pops up. Close it down, click it, it pops up. So we don't need the Alt F11, we don't need this anymore. We're done with this, all the coding's done. Now every time, obviously save it, every time you load this up, this is how your Excel spreadsheet will look. You'll have a button here, and all you've got to do is click it, and then we can start adding them in. So let's say we went for another bet. Skybet. I won £27 £26.50. I'm just typing anything here because that's a withdrawal. Submit. There we go. It's added it in. However, we haven't tested yet whether not choosing any of these radio buttons, option buttons. So let's test that. So sky, bet, 100, whatever. We're just testing it. I'm not going to click any of them. Let's hit submit. You can see here we get a box popping up saying select an option, deposit or withdraw. That's what we told it. So we just click OK, and it'll take us back. Nothing's been added. Again, we can keep clicking this forever and a day, and until we click one of the option boxes, it's not going to add it. So then as soon as we click deposit, it allows the code to run. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I will either put this code up in the description and probably provide a download link for this spreadsheet so that you can just go in and have a play with it and see how I've done it.